Last week, Orion at Kings Island officially opened to the public. This coaster has a height of 287 feet and a drop of 300 feet. This officially classifies it as a Giga coaster. This coaster is only the 7th traditional Giga coaster in the entire world and is only the 3rd Giga coaster by B&M. When this coaster was originally announced, it got mixed reviews from enthusiasts, but now that it's actually open, the people who have ridden it say that it definitely surpassed their expectations. So now that this coaster is finally opened, it brings another question to everyone's mind, and that question is, when exactly will we see another B&M Giga? And if soon, what kind of layout would it entail? So in this video, I'm going to be answering all those questions and so much more while looking at what the next possible B&M Giga could be, along with what new elements a ride like this could possibly include. And yes, I'm going to be telling you why I think a future B&M Giga could maybe include an inversion. So join me as I speculate on the future of the B&M Giga and I answer the question of what is the next B&M Giga going to be. But like always, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I post new videos every week and I really appreciate all of the amazing support that the channel has been getting. But now let's get to the video. A major focus in this video is going to be about Orion. This coaster didn't create the biggest amount of hype when it was initially announced, but in the end the majority of enthusiasts warmed up to it. The reason that this coaster is very important to this video is because it's B&M's most recent Giga, and this will help us determine what type of elements a future Giga coaster could include. Orion starts off with a 287 foot tall lift hill, and then you plunge down into a huge 300 foot drop, and after that you go into a wave turn like element. And I know this element isn't officially considered a wave turn, but nevertheless it looks awesome. And after that you go into what's called a reverse treble clef. This is basically Fury's treble clef, but it's taken in the opposite way. And after this you go into 2 airtime hills and then into a helix. And then you go into one more pop of airtime and then pop up into the brake run. So the layout is pretty basic, but it still manages to be an amazing ride. But before we talk about what a future B&M Giga could include, we need to figure out where exactly would it go. And as of now, it doesn't look like we will see a Giga in 2021 or 2022. So 2023 looks like the absolute earliest we could see a B&M Giga. But where would it go? As of now, there are a few parks that I think a Giga would fit perfectly at, like Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, Hershey Park Dollywood, Fuji-Q Highland, Energylandia, and so much more. But the parks that I think have the greatest chance of getting a Giga in 2023 or sooner are Energylandia, Fuji-Q Highland, and Busch Gardens Tampa. I think Energylandia and Fuji-Q have a pretty decent chance of getting one, but Busch Gardens Tampa is on the list because it's a complete wildcard. In my opinion, nothing would fit better at Busch Gardens Tampa than a huge Giga coaster. They already have a gigantic RMC, an invert, a dive coaster, 2 multi-launches, and so much more. So the thing that they are missing is a huge coaster focused on airtime, and I think a Giga would fit that perfectly. Now I know that they have a height limit of 200 feet, but it's a common misconception that they can't build over it. It's actually not impossible for them to build over it at all. It would just require the Florida government and the local government to make an exception for the project, which they have done before, so it's not really impossible. So while this 200 foot height limit makes it harder for them to get a Giga, it can certainly still happen. There are a lot of things that make me say that they could get a Giga, but basically if SeaWorld's financial situation improves, I can certainly see them getting a Giga sometime in the future. And one other park that I could see getting a Giga sometime soon is Port Aventura. I think this park could easily get a Giga, although I don't quite know when they would get it. But right now, the park that is the most likely to get a Giga in the future is Energylandia. At the rate that this park is adding coasters, it's only a matter of time before they do eventually get a Giga. And like Busch Gardens Tampa, a Giga would fit perfectly in their lineup. They have Hyperion and Intamin Hyper, so a B&M Giga makes a lot of sense. So I think Energylandia will actually get a Giga relatively soon. And if Energylandia got a Giga, I'm assuming that they would go all out. So that brings up the question of what will an all-out B&M Giga coaster consist of? Because right now, I honestly believe that we haven't seen the full potential of the B&M Giga. I think an all-out B&M Giga would basically need to be an upgraded version of Fury 325. Fury as of now is regarded to be the best B&M Giga, so I think in order to make the Giga coaster better than Fury, it would need to do 3 things. It would need to be taller, faster, and also incorporate a special element. Fury goes 95 miles an hour and I could easily see Energylandia beating this, and the same goes for the height. I could see Energylandia's Giga coaster being 5 feet taller. And as for the layout, I think it would be very similar to Fury 325 but just tweaked a little. There is something that I've been thinking about for a very long time, and that is the question of why doesn't any of the B&M Giga coasters have any inversions? It's very interesting to me that we haven't seen a B&M Hyper or Giga go upside down at all, and you may be thinking that it's completely impossible for a B&M Giga to go upside down because it only has those B&M clamshell restraints. This is very interesting to me, because honestly I'd love to see one have an inversion. So I thought about it for a while, thinking of any way that it could possibly include an inversion. And unfortunately, after thinking about it for a while, I came to the conclusion that there are very limited options when it comes to inversions. In fact, I think there's only one possible inversion that B&M might even consider trying. And that inversion is a dive drop. A dive drop is an inversion that's featured on most wing coasters. It's very similar to a dive loop where at one point you're completely upside down. On wing coasters, it's at the beginning of the ride and it's usually taken pretty slowly. This gives you some awesome hang time before you get on the drop. But on other coasters such as Hyperion, it's taken at a much faster speed because it's being used as a turnaround. This is something that I honestly think B&M is going to try eventually. It's technically an inversion, but because it's being used as a turnaround, I think the current B&M trains are definitely capable of handling it. So I predict that a future B&M Giga will definitely use this element. Some people say that the reverse treble clef on Orion gives some hang time in the back row, so it would be very interesting to see a dive drop actually happen. In fact, the reverse treble clef on Orion is basically a stretched out version of a dive drop anyway. And I honestly think that they are able to incorporate this element into a future Giga coaster. It's just a matter of if they want to or not. But something that I definitely think that they are going to incorporate is faster paced elements. I've heard that the pacing on Orion is actually pretty decent, and this is something that they're probably going to continue with in the future. So now it's time to answer my original question of what is the next B&M Giga going to be, and I'm going to be doing something a little risky. I'm not only going to be predicting where and when we will see the next B&M Giga, but I'm also going to be giving you my thoughts on what possible layout and elements it could include. So without further ado, here are my top 3 predictions on what the next B&M Giga could be along with their stats. Like I said earlier, the most likely park to get a Giga is Energylandia. This park has been focused on coasters a lot lately and is shaping up to be the next Cedar Point. They just got possibly the world's best RMC, an amazing hypercoaster, and an awesome Vekoma launch coaster. So it would only make sense that with their seemingly infinite budget for them to get a B&M Giga. It would be their first B&M and it would also be incredibly well received at the park. And even though this park has all these record-breaking coasters, the majority of their coasters are still family coasters, so having a huge B&M would set itself apart from the rest. I predict that the layout of this coaster would be very similar to Fury 325 with it just having under 6,000 feet of track. I also predict that this coaster will be taller than Fury but only by 5 feet, making it 330 feet tall. And as of when we would see this coaster, I'd say 2024 or 2023 at the earliest. The second option would be for Fuji-Q Highland to get a B&M Giga in 2022. This is unlikely, but they're already rumored to be getting a $33 million investment in 2022. But I'm still a little bit skeptical that it could indeed be the B&M Giga and not something else. But if they did go the B&M Giga route, I could see it being very much like Fury 325, and maybe with a price tag of over $30 million, they could get this ride to the coveted 350 foot mark. And like I said before, if the ride is 350 feet tall, the speed would probably be 100 miles an hour, which would be awesome. But unlike Energylandia, I think this is super unlikely. And the least likely option of all would be for Busch Gardens Tampa Bay to get a B&M Giga in 2023, 2024, or 2025. Busch Gardens has been establishing itself as the Cedar Point of Florida, so I think it only makes sense that they do get a Giga eventually. I don't think a B&M Giga would be too similar to Fury here. I think they would be very similar to Orion with it being a smaller size Giga, although if B&M was to do that dive drop I talked about earlier, it would be a perfect place to do it. So to conclude, the most likely option is Energylandia in 2023, 2024, or 2025, and I think if they did get a Giga coaster, it would be amazing. B&M would go all out and would be an awesome fit for the park. It would most likely be a bucket list coaster for enthusiasts around the world. The B&M Giga coaster is a model that defines B&M as a company, and I think it will be around for a very long time. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see content just like this every week, and comment below your thoughts on the B&M Giga coaster. Where do you think the next one is going to be built? This is the Coaster Josh signing out.